nothing like chanting to really clear the air out of your lungs. It's fantastic to see everyone here today. Yeah, I'm a candidate standing for the Socialist Alliance in Denison, and I'm also a climate activist. And I think that the starting point for climate action always has to be the science. And the vast majority of climate scientists around the world say that unless we reduce the amount of carbon, we're headed for a climate catastrophe. And everyone here knows that, I'm sure. We need to cut our emissions by 5% a year and move as rapidly as possible to a zero carbon economy. And as we heard in the chants, any action that delays this is the same as denial. Delay is denial. And as Christine spoke about earlier, there are 12 new coal-fired power stations in the pipeline to be built in Australia over the next few years. This is denial. This is madness. The New South Wales State Government is planning to construct 2 new coal-fired power stations, which will increase the state's emissions by up to 15%. There are plans to open a coal mine next to the town of Margaret River in Western Australia. Margaret River is famous for its beautiful wines, and they want to threaten that industry by opening a coal mine. There's another 3 coal-fired power stations planned for Western Australia, another 4 in Queensland and 2 in South Australia. This is denial. There's no other way to describe it. And while the Labor government says that climate change is the greatest moral issue of our time, at the same time they're delaying any urgent action and then hope that we will be fooled. And if we complain that their policies aren't good enough, they say, well, look, you can vote for the Liberals and they'll be worse, and then nothing will happen. And that's true, but that's not the point. The point is that it doesn't matter if the Labor Party is slightly less bad than the Liberals. The fact is that they're still, both of them are taking us down the track of climate catastrophe. It's not good enough. So good climate policy would start with a massive investment in renewable energy. And a report just released by the Melbourne group Beyond Zero Emissions has shown that it's possible to move Australia to 100% renewable energy in the next 10 years. And this sounds fantastical, but it's true. They've got this very good plan which is costed, it's very detailed, and it uses technology that's already commercially available and is being used in the world right now. And so it brings me back to my point that the starting point has to be the science, and we can't negotiate with the science. And there's no way that any new coal-fired power station should be built. The switch to a green, clean economy would create hundreds of thousands of new jobs, but we would need to ensure a just transition for workers in the old industries at the same time to make the switch. And the Socialist Alliance has a policy of establishing new sustainable industries in the same areas as the old industries and retraining workers on full pay. The Socialist Alliance would welcome a price on carbon because it could raise some money that could be used for this transformation to renewables. But at the same time, a carbon price alone is not enough to do the job. It won't be enough to get the job done in the time frame that we need of 10 years. So what we're calling for is public investment in renewables, and for other things like a massive expansion of public transport, which Hobart desperately needs. And in times gone by, it was the government that built the railways, that built the hydro dams, that built the electricity grid. And these days, the government, doesn't want to take responsibility for building new infrastructure that we desperately need. If we want a new hospital or a new school, we don't implement a pricing mechanism to make business more interested in investing in these things. So why are we leaving this important transition up to the market? It's the government's responsibility to take on this task. And it will cost about 3% of annual GDP for the next 10 years. But we could fund this by restoring the corporate tax rate to the levels in the 1980s, or by diverting something like $9 billion in subsidies that we currently give to the fossil fuel industry every year. With all the climate-linked disasters that are happening in the world right now, with the bushfires in Russia and the floods in Pakistan, I think it's really easy to despair and to fall into thinking that we can't change anything and it's already too late. But I think that mass action is the antidote to despair, and we've seen that today. I feel great being here. And we have the beginnings of a strong climate movement in Australia already, and we need to build and strengthen this so that we can force the government to act. In some good international news, in what may amount to a historic moment in the quest to save the world's rainforests and mitigate climate change, Ecuador and the United Nations Development Fund have created a trust fund to protect one of the world's most biodiverse rainforests from oil exploration and development. This fund will allow the international community to pay Ecuador to leave an estimated 850 million barrels of oil in the ground instead of extracting it. This will allow the rainforests to be protected, to remain pristine, safeguarding the lives of Indigenous people who live on the land, and keeping an estimated 410 million tonnes of CO2 out of the atmosphere. This shows what's possible when you have a government committed to putting the environment before private profit. I just wanted to also say there are people going around the crowd with information about the Brighton Bypass campaign. I think that's a really important campaign that's happening close to home, and I encourage everyone to grab a leaflet and read about it. So just to finish up, I'd encourage you to grab a copy of the Socialist Alliance's Climate Charter. This is our climate change policy that was voted the best out of all political parties in Australia by voteclimate.org website. And yeah, have a read about what we stand for. And so I'm standing as a candidate calling for a different system where instead of corporations having control, ordinary people can have collective decision making over the environment and over the decisions that affect our lives. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Mel. Fantastic. Another thing you can do in the crowd is that we have petitions being circulated primarily by people in the fluoro jackets. Please, if you want to sign a petition and make your voice heard that way, please do that. Also, we do have an election coming up in case anyone noticed. Climate Action Hobart is apolitical. We recommend that you vote for a safe climate. You have to work out how to do that all by yourself. However, you may have noticed that the major parties are currently offering you a choice between a climate denialist in Speedos and a massive focus group.